Okay, so we're on 35A. Um, we're 5 lines from the top. Um, okay, so we were talking about cheese of Avodah Zarah, made by people involved with Avodah Zarah. Um, then, so in the Mishnah, there was a discussion between Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Shmuel, whether you can eat the cheese or get benefit from the cheese. So, um, so Rabbi Yeshua was asked in the Mishnah, um, like, why do you say that the cheese is permitted for hana, is mutar b'hana, that you can get benefit from it? Mishum v'laderbe, he should answer Mishum delesi l'isur b'einei, because you can't see it. Oh, we did this already. I'm sorry. Oh, we're a little bit further. He seal davar acher. At the 2 dots, 3 lines down from there. Hisil davar acher. So Rabbi Yeshua kind of distracted him or changed the subject, asking him like Tovim Dodecha Miyayin, the verse in Shir Hashirim, what does that mean? And Rabbi Yeshua understands that it means that we say to God that your love for us is better than wine. My kitovim dodecha miyayin. So the Gemara is going to ask a little further. What does it mean? Kiasa Rav Dimi Amar. When Rav Dimi came, he said, Amra Knesset Yisrael Fnei Kadosh Baruch Hu. The Jewish people said to God, Ribbon Shalom, Arevim Alai Divrei Dodecha Yoser Miyena Shel Torah. Uh, the the words of Dodecha, of your friends or your lovers, which we understand to be the Talmidei Chachamim, that I'd rather listen to their words. I prefer that to Yena Shel Torah than the wine of Torah. In other words, we prefer the elaborations on Torah, the development of the Torah to the original written Torah itself. Maishna Haikra Deshaile. Why did he ask him about? So why did Rabbi Yeshua distract him or go off on a tangent this particular pasuk? Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi v'Tem Rabbi Shimon ben Barami, Mereshe Dekra Kamarle. Like he's asking about that pasuk because of the beginning of that pasuk. Yishakeni min shikos piu. May God kiss me. May the lover kiss me with his mouth, the kisses of his mouth, and understood as God kissing the Jewish people. Amar leim Yishmael achi, Yishmael my brother, Chashok siv sosecha zo bezu. Zip it, put your lips together. V'al taval lahashib. Don't answer so quickly. So in other words, because he's hinting to him, because this pasuk that he asked him about for a drasha about refers to lips, he's like telling him, put your lips together, don't talk. My tama. Why did he put him off? Amar Ula b'Tamer Shmuel Barabba, Gezerah Chadasha he vein mefak b'chin ba. It's like the whole cheese thing is like a whole. It's made up. It's a new gzera, and don't you can't do so many drushas about it. It is what it is. Don't try to convince me. Don't give me pilpul about the drasha. My gzarte, and why is there such a gzera? Why? What's the problem with cheese? Um, Amar Shimon ben Pazi, Amar Shimon ben Levi, Amar Shimon says Mishum Nikur, because a snake might have bitten it. There might be a puncture in it, and the snake bite would deposit poison in the cheese. V'leimalei Mishum Nikur. So say so. Don't give me these obtuse, like don't ask questions. Tell me because it's no, sorry, not that don't ask questions, but like why. Um, Yeah, so why doesn't when asking why do we not eat cheese, don't say don't ask. It's just don't ask too many questions. Say it's because of snake poison. Kidula, more answers is because of what Ula said. Yamar Ula, Kigazre Gezerte Marava, when they make a Gzera in Palestine, Lo Megalu Tama Atresi Archishata. First they make the Gzera, then they explain themselves 12 months later. Dilma Ika Inish Los Fiole, maybe people will disagree with their reasoning. Basil is also So he's like, these rabbis, they, it's faulty assumptions, faulty logic. I'm not going to keep the Xera. No, what they do is they say, here's the decree. Don't do this. Don't eat cheese. 12 months later, they'll publish an opinion why we said that. But by that time, it's presumably been adopted by people that they don't eat the Avodah Zarah cheese. Meganif bar Rav Yirmiyah. Rav Yirmiyah was, he was surprised by this. He expressed his surprise. El me'ata yavsha tishterei. So then, if that's the case, then dried cheese should be okay. Yashan tishrei, or aged cheese should be okay. Do you remember Chanina Yavesh Mutar? Uh, um, uh, if the reason for the cheese rule is snake bite, then it should make a difference if it's dried or if it's old, because Rav Chanina says Yavesh Mutar. If you have something that's dried, like a solid thing, not liquid, that it might be that a snake bit it, but it's if it's already dried, then the snake venom has no more potency. um, then it should be permitted, right? If the reason is danger from snake bite, then don't worry about aged cheese, because the snake venom would not be potent anymore. But ein manichol yabesh, because uh, and how do we know that? Uh, and because the snake venom would keep it from drying out. Okay, so if it's dried, it means that there's no snake venom in it. Sorry, not that it lost its potency, but that it's evidence that there's no snake venom there. Yashan mutar, and also old cheese would be okay, or not even cheese, but any old liquid. Eman yashin, because it wouldn't, aged means, like wine, it ferments more as uh, as it ages. If it has venom in it, then that wouldn't happen. So therefore, that can't be the snake bite can't be the reason. Amar Chanina lefi she'yefshar la below tzich chalav, because the cheese must have must still have some milk in it. Um, so um, so then we have a problem of non-kosher milk, right? It might be that there's still um, there might be some non-kosher milk mixed into it. So we know, part of the rule is that the only animal's milk that can curdle cheese, that can make cheese, is kosher animals. So that's why, generally speaking, cheese is assumed to be kosher. Or at least in principle, cheese is assumed to be kosher because it must be from a kosher animal's milk. But what if you mix in a little bit of non-kosher animal's milk? Then it would still become cheese, and there might be pockets of milk that didn't curdle or didn't become cheese because it's not from a kosher, because it's from a non-kosher animal's milk that doesn't turn into cheese. Um, so
That has
so that's
nothing to do
why.
with the snake then, though, does it?
No, yeah, yeah, we rejected the snake thing, because if it were the snake thing, it would be, well, what about dried cheese? If it's dry, that's evidence that there's no, and yet dried cheese is forbidden, right? They made it a blanket rule. So even though dried cheese is it's self-evident that there's no snake venom in it. Okay, so we rejected that. That can't be the reason. So now we're saying the reason is there might be pockets of non-kosher milk within the cheese. Ushmuel Amar, mipnei shemamidin osa ba'or kevas nevela, because um, where how do you make the cheese? They make it in the stomach of an avela, right? So you take the stomach from a dead animal, and you let the cheese curdle in there. Is curdle the right word, by the way? I might be misusing that.
Could be. I mean, milk curdles, right? But
Yeah,
usually if it curdles, it's not good milk.
yeah. So I'm not sure if that's the right word, but
Right.
you
Yeah,
understand what I'm.
it's fine.
That's fine. So what I mean is that it's becoming the process of becoming cheese. Um, so where it says Hakeva Gufa Sharia. So that implies that the rennet itself is okay. Like, the problem is because it belonged to an idol worshiper. Um, and not because of its kashrus, like not, but Shmuel. So Miyam Shmuel Hachim, but Shmuel doesn't hold that. That's not Kevos Ovid Kochavim, rennet of an animal, of an idolater's animal, Shel Nevela, or of an Nevela Harizu Asura. You can't eat it. Vavina ba. And they discussed it. Atu the Ovid Kochavim lav nevela he, like any Ovid Kochavim. An Ovid Kochavim doesn't do proper shchita. Like, why? What are you telling me then that if a nevela, if the remnant from a nevela is usher, then certainly that's enough reason. Doesn't have to even get into Avodah Zarah. V'yamar Shmuel Chada Katani. Shmuel says, no, the Mishnah is talking about, it's only teaching you one thing. Kevas Shchitas Ovid Kochavim, Nevela Asura. He's telling you that if a Ovid Kochavim slaughters an animal, then it is an Nevela. Um, uh, but it's prohibited. So that's evidence that Shmuel says that the nevela rennet is not, you can't eat it. Where it says lokasha, not a problem. Kan kodam chazara. That was before our Mishnah, which, no, sorry, the Mishnah that we're talking about is before Rabbi Shua changed his mind. Kan lacha chazara. Shmuel's explanation here, the Gemara is after Rabbi Yeshua um, changed his mind. In other words, he agreed with Rabbi Shmuel.
What was his
The
mind? What
Mishnah,
was it? Can you review what was his thinking before and the thinking after? What did he change his mind about?
okay, so
You lost
let's.
here.
It's a good opportunity to look back at the Mishnah and look at it inside, which is on uh, where's our Mishnah? Here it is. Um, Long Mishnah on 29b. Um, about a third of the way down the page. Shal Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yeshua, Kisho Mahalchim Baderech. Rabbi Yishmael asked Rabbi Yeshua. He asked, Amarlo, he said, "Mipnei ma asru gavinos of the kohanim." What's the problem with cheese of idol worshippers? Amarlo, mipnei shamaminos of a kevel shel nevela, because it's made with rennet of a nevela. Amarlo, so Rabbi Shmuel says, "Olo kevel ola chamura mikevel nevela." The rennet of an ola is worse than the rennet of a nevela. It's kachim, and you can't benefit it. Amru kohen shadato yafash sarfa chaya. And but they said, and they said a coin that that it's appealing to him. He can eat it raw. This rennet v'lo hodelo. They didn't agree. Aval amru ein nen in v'lo molin. They said that you can't have hana, but it's not meal, right? So what does that show? Um, it shows that that the mm, okay, was Nevela. And yeah, the cave an ola is worse than the vela. It's like more the severity of the transgression is worse, and the kohen can eat it raw. So Rabbi Yeshua has to say, "Amar lo mipnei malminos obekevas egle over the kachavim." Oh, it's not an avela problem. The problem with the idolater cheese is that the animal that they used was an avodah zarah animal for the rennet. If it's a Zarah problem, then the cheese should be Asr Bana, but that's not the rule. So he see davar acher. So uh, that's when he changed the topic. So in other words, we're understanding that Rabbi Yeshua agreed with Rabbi Shmuel that so what's his reason? Um, Hold on a second. So, so Rabbi Yeshua no longer has an explanation. In other words, he kind of couldn't answer Rabbi Shmuel's um, challenge. And we're understanding that he changed his mind, and now, um, so at this point, um, so we understand. So now he agrees that the rennet is something that's separate from the nevela. It's not an issue of kashrus. And whereas the Mishnah that we just quoted in Chulin is uh, considers that it was said when he still believed that it was unkosher.
So you could say that, well, where do we draw the line with what's kosher or not kosher? I mean, if isn't a goy allowed, non-Jew allowed to shech the animal? Or are we saying not at all? I thought he
Well, we're
could.
assuming, I guess he would be allowed to. I'm not, if he's being supervised, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure if that's true, but we're going to assume that, any, like who's going to do that, right? If you have an animal that was slaughtered by a non-Jew, you have to assume that he didn't do it according to the Shechita laws.
Yeah, I
Like,
don't
why
know.
would he?
I it's been a while since I looked at this Gemara, but in practice, we would use rennet from non-kosher animals, even. But the rennet to be put in by the Jew, which is kind of weird. Now nobody uses animal rennet in the at least the United States.
Right. Yeah, is that so, by the way? It's all bacterial rennet?
There might be some small specialty cheeses, but all the major
Commercial stuff.
use the artificial rennet.
So I just
Not
can
true
summarize,
everywhere in the world, but that's true in the United States.
but here can just summarize who held what and what was the retraction? It's got a little confusing there.
Whether
Rabbi
the
Yeshua held it was yeah, go ahead, Charlie.
the rennet, well, the rennet may be literally non-kosher, and we're deliberately adding it.
Right. So Rabbi Yeshua originally thought that it's a kashrus problem, and Rabbi Shmuel talked him out of it.
Yeah, that seems to be what happened.
And talk to, so then it's a problem
Then
with,
the only problem is the Avodah Zarah aspect.
and what was Rabbi Yeshua's opinion? What did he hold?
Rabbi Yeshua originally held that it's a nevela problem, right? That we were assuming that an Avodah Zarah, that an Avodah Zarah who makes cheese, he's not going to use a kosher animal. Why would he?
Right. And so then Rabbi Yeshua changes his mind
Yeah,
and
Yeah,
he held that it would be acceptable? Or he held that what? He just
it's an Avodah Zarah problem, not a. He conceded to Rabbi Ishmael.
uh-huh.
right. Yeah, it's a little confusing to follow, but yeah, essentially that's it. Rav Malkiah Mishmei de Ravad bar Rav Amar. Rav Malkiah said, "Mipnei shemachlikin paneh b'shuman chazir." So why then is it a problem to eat the cheese? Because they use lard to coat the surface of the cheese. Um, Rav Chisda Amar. Rav Chisda said, so that would be a good reason, and I think this is not so far fetched. I've been to like cheese caves in England where they actually do that, right? They use lard on the surface to I don't know if that seals it or protects it from something. I don't remember. Rav Chisda Amar, "B'nei shemaminin osa b'chometz," because they use vinegar made from wine, presumably, as part of the process. So then it's a yain nesach problem. Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak Amar, "B'nei shemaminin osa b'sraf ha'orla," because they use sap, tree sap from young trees that are still subject to the Orla rule. So in the first 3 years, you can't use any produce of the tree, so they're using the sap to make the cheese. Come on. Now, according to which Tana is this? Ki hai Tana, the Tanan, in the Mishnah, it says, Hamami b'strafa arla aser. So that, Rabbi Lazar, Hamami b'strafa arla aser. So that accords with the opinion of Rabbi Lazar that says, if you use if you use tree sap from arla to make the cheese, then the cheese is not kosher, mipnei shehu pere, because it's like a fruit, right? So, the Torah doesn't say you can't use the wood of the arla of the tree that's still in its arla. Excuse me. Period. You can't eat the fruit, and so he considers the sap to be fruit of the tree. And the Gemara says, no, you don't even have to go that way. You could even say that if sap is not part of the fruit, ad kan lo pali Rabbi Yeshua alei de Rabbi Lazar el bekitva de gavza. What are they arguing about? The resin of the wood. So it's not an edible product. But so that's what they're arguing about, whether it's considered arla aval bekitva de pere mode. But sap, which is edible, Rabbi Yeshua would agree with Rabbi Eliezer that it's forbidden because of arla. So according to both of them, the sap of the arla tree is a problem, and that would be the reason for not eating the cheese, because it could have been made with orla sap. And that's what we have in that Mishnah, in that same Mishnah, Rabbi Yeshua, Shamati b'feirush shamami b'srafa olin u'b'srafa ikarin mutar. Rabbi Yeshua says, I have a tradition. I know specifically that if you make cheese with the sap of the leaves or the sap of the roots, then it's okay. B'srafa pagin aser, but if you use the sap of the figs themselves, then it's no good because that sap. So it's not really sap here. I guess it's like the unripe fig, maybe just the sap. That is considered the fruit, part of the fruit of the tree. So he says specifically that when regarding the sap, everybody, even Rabbi Yeshua, agrees that it is forbidden, and that's why the cheese is forbidden. So Ben Rav Chizda, Ben Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak, according to either one of them, whether whether you say it's the vinegar, wine vinegar, or tree sap, that's the problem in the cheese. Tzar b'hana. So arla is asar b'hana, and yayin nesach is asar b'hana. So how can you have benefit from cheese? It's the only problem with cheese is eating it, but you can use it for anything else. Kasha, yeah, you know what? That's a good question, and that is a problem with those explanations. Now a little bit of a tangent. Back to Shir Hashirim. Darsh Rav Nachman Berei Rav Chizda Mai Dichsiv L'Rech Shmanecha Tovim. The next pasuk in Shir Hashirim says your oil is good for the smell, for the fragrance. Lama, tell me, what does that mean? Lama, tell me Chacham Dama. What do we? What's a Torah scholar? What's that? How do we understand the nature of Talmud Chacham? L'tzlochis shel plighting. A flask of oil, of this balsam oil. Megula rechanodef. If it's open, then you get a nice perfume in the room. But if you keep it covered, you don't smell it, right? So the same thing. If a Torah scholar, if he keeps his knowledge and his wisdom to himself, he's not really doing anybody any good. He has to share his knowledge, like perfume the room, as it were. Below, not only that, if he does so, then he himself, the Torah scholar, understands new things that he didn't know before. Shenemar alamos ahivucha. The end of that pasuk is the women, the alamos, the young women love you, but alamos karibe alumos. We're going to read it differently. Alumos, hidden things. So hidden things will love you, or you'll find new hidden things in the Torah. V'lo, and more than that, Malach HaMavos Ovo, even the angel of death will love you. The Torah scholar. Shnemar Alamos Aivucha. How do you read Alamos? Kuribe Al Maves, right? Split that word into two, and it's he who is appointed over death, the Malach HaMavos Ahuvucha will love you. V'lo, Elashanochel Shnei Alamos. You inherit two worlds. This world and the next world. Shnemar Alamos Kuribe Olamos. You can read the word Olamos. You get worlds will love you, meaning this world and the next world. Okay, next Mishnah. Masurim These are things that are forbidden. Avodas are things that are forbidden to eat, but they're okay to get benefit from. Milk that is milked by an Ovid Kochavim without supervision of a Jew. Don't drink it, but you can get benefit from it. Hapas, bread of idol worshippers that they've baked, same thing. V'Hashem and Shalom, their oil. Rabbi Ubeis, he tira shemen, but Rabbi said oil is okay, not a problem to eat. V'hashlokos and things that they braise, that they cook, these are also okay. Ukavashin shadarkan laseis lasochan yain v'chometz, and preserves which they usually use with wine and vinegar. The preserves themselves are okay to eat. Vitaris terufa, this taris, which apparently is like a small fish that's usually preserved and eaten. Now it's like chopped fish. So like think of gefilte fish, right? Can you really tell which fish a gefilte fish came from? No, you cannot because it's been all chopped up. So this is something, don't eat it from Eloi Kochavim, but you can benefit from it. Vitzir shein bodaga kilbis shotatasbo, and this fish brine or brine that doesn't have a fish swimming in it, meaning this is a fish that that is swimming in this kosher brine. Don't eat the fish itself is not kosher, but the brine you can don't eat it, but you can benefit from it. V'hachilak, this is um, a fish that whose species grows fins and scales, but when it's young, it hasn't developed them yet. So don't eat it, but you can benefit from it. V'karet shel chiltis, the grain of chiltis, which is some kind of a very, like a horseradish kind of thing, some kind of very sharp taste. So if it's if it belongs to over the Avodah Zarah, and he would be using his knives on it, the knives can be assumed to have a non-kosher substance on them from being used for meat or whatever. So don't eat that, but you can benefit from it. Umelach salkundis, and this kind of salt, the Gemara will talk about what it is. Harela surim v'nisurim. Don't eat them, but you can benefit from them. So chalav.
Yeah, the asafoetida I use all the time in Indian cooking, and I'm not aware of any with a kashrut texture that is available in the United States today.
What is it you're talking about? Sorry.
Quilty is asafoetida.
Okay.
It's a spice used often in Indian cooking.
Interesting. Okay.
Over a decade ago, I managed to buy some that had an OU on it, but
yeah?
it's not available anymore. Unfortunately, I'm still using what I bought back then because it's a very, very strong spice.
Never had it, or not knowingly anyway.
If you ate at an Indian restaurant, you probably had it and didn't even know.
Okay.
How does the Mishnah here define the pot v'Hashem Shalem, the pot? Now, are we specifically talking about pot Yisrael, or because we can buy bread that is pot Yisrael and you can buy bread that's not, but it's still kosher?
Right. So we're talking about bread made by an Ovid Kochavim.
That's
with supervision, right? What you're talking about is with supervision.
Right. Okay.
So
I mean,
this
the Shulchan Aruch says it in the kids, and they describe that pot
right. So the Gemara will
made
discuss
by a non-Jew can be eaten all year, and even if they bake it in your house and so forth. But
right.
some
So the
people
Gemara is going to get to
doing Aseret Yemei Tshuva to eat pot Yisrael, for instance.
Correct. So the Gemara is going to discuss all of this, and you're correct. It's not a kashrus problem, and the supervision doesn't matter. It's the process. If it's made by or maybe owned by the Ovid Kochavim, you don't need it not for kashrus reasons, but for social reasons, as we will discuss, and as you're probably familiar with. Okay, so now the Gemara is going to go through all these things. Chalav, l'may nechushlei. What's the problem with milk of an Avodah Zarah? Imishum machlufe. If you're afraid that like he's selling you camel's milk and calling it cow's milk, tahar chivar, tamei yarok. You could be able to tell by the appearance of the milk because kosher milk is white and non-kosher milk has a yellow tinge, so you can see what you're buying. V'imishum yaruve, and if you're concerned that he's going to mix in a little camel's milk into the cow's milk, um, um, so it would still be white. Nakum, like you can test it, right? You can try to make cheese with it, and if it works, then you know it's kosher milk. Although, we said earlier today that if you mix in a little bit of non-kosher milk, it could still become cheese. So I know that this Mishnah would challenge that, or this Gemara would challenge that. But anyway, so like you could
There
test
was
the
a
milk. Diamar
it's
Mar.
not it's not
Mhm.
an but there's a famous case a few years ago. A chef in Brooklyn made some cheese from his wife's breast milk after they had a baby.
I vaguely recall that. Yeah.
Yeah, it is actually kosher.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah.
So that doesn't, it doesn't challenge the rule. Diamar Mark, as we said, chalav tahara made. Um, Kosher milk makes cheese. Chalav tamei eno made. Non-kosher milk doesn't make cheese. So we still have no reason. Like why not drink their milk? The answer is idukabay ligvina. If you want it for cheese, hachaname. So okay, you'll if you're buying the milk not to drink but to make cheese. So try to make cheese. If it works, great. It was kosher milk, and if it doesn't work, then you're no like it wasn't kosher, but you'll know. So it's a good test. Hachamai skin. When we're talking about the kabayle lechamka, you want to use it like you want to drink the milk, or you want to use it in a recipe. So by the time you do the cheese experiment, the milk will have gone bad and you can't use it anymore. Or it will be like the next day or the next week. I don't know how long it takes for cheese to curdle. So, um, so if you bought the milk not to make cheese with, but to use in some other way, then you'd have to worry about whether it's kosher or whether it's got non-kosher milk mixed into it, and saying that you could test it isn't an answer. Vinishkol mine kali vinekum. So okay, so like take a little bit of it, try to make cheese, use the rest for your recipe. Kevin de bitar name ika nisyove lokaime. Since in kosher milk, like that wouldn't be a good experiment because even if we're completely kosher, you took a little sample from it and tried to make cheese, it might not work, right? Like you need the whole batch of milk to have enough, I guess, rennet in it, or not rennet, but enough. Whatever it is that becomes cheese to make cheese. So you could do an experiment. It could fail, um, and it wouldn't prove anything about the kashrus of the milk. Um, so like it'll make them all the milsa. So you can't. The experiment wouldn't be valid. Um, or you could say, I feel it him with the kabbalah ligvina. You could say, no, we're talking about where you want to use the milk to make cheese. Ika dekai bene itve. There's always, and this is what we said earlier. There's always some way, liquid left in the cheese, and that might be. So the cheese itself isn't a problem, but there might be, the non-kosher milk that was mixed in might still be there within the block of cheese, and that's why you can't eat it. But again, no, it's not a problem. Vapas. Now we're going to talk about the bread. Amar Kal Rabbi Yochanan. Pasla u'trabavesi. Bread baked by an Avodah Zarah was not permitted by the Sanhedrin, right? So the oil that was mentioned in the Mishnah, that they took that back. They're like, okay, that was a bad move. As we'll see, we're going to say oil is now permitted, oil of Avodah Zarah, of a non-Jewish oil, but they didn't retract the bread. Michlal di Shari. So, so is there? So by saying it wasn't approved or wasn't permitted by the court, does that mean that there were some who wanted to permit it, but the decision was the majority decision was not to? And yes, that's the case. There were some that wanted to take back the prohibition of pasakum. The chiyasar of Dimi Amar, Rav Dimi came, he said, Pamachas yatsa Rabbi Lasada. Rabbi went out to the field, Hevio kochavim lefana pas porne. And the Soviet Kochavim brought him some bread to eat, a particular kind of bread, pas porne, baked in the porne oven. Um, Whatever, this different, particular kind of oven in the story. Mafe saw, and it was the size of a saw. A very large loaf of bread. Amar Rebbe, coming up, Pasu. What a nice looking loaf of bread. Mauro Chachamim Loser. Why did the rabbis, too bad that the rabbis said, I can't eat this bread because it really looks nice. Mauro Chachamim. So, like, is that what he said? Mishum Chasnus. We know why. Because social reasons, right? You start eating the bread of Avodah Kochavim, next thing you know, your kids are going to marry his kids. Or you'll marry them, or whatever. Elamaro Chachamim Loser Basada. Why? Is it a problem out in the field, right? He's not inviting you into your home. There's no social thing going on here. He brought you something to eat. Kisfurim ha'am hitir Rabbi hapas. So what they thought was they thought that he was saying that was a bad move to make the bread usher. In other words, he thought that it was now okay to permit it. But what he was really saying was, no, I agree that in their home you can't eat it, but out in the field, why is it usher in the field? Velohi, but that's not so. Rabbi Lohi Tirsapas. He that wasn't his opinion. He did not disagree with the prohibition of bread. Rav Yosef Yitem Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda Amar Lokach. That wasn't the story. This was the story. Rabbi went somewhere, and he saw that people didn't have a lot of bread. Rabbi, Enkan Palter, what? There's no bakery nearby. They thought he meant there's no Wonder Bread factory nearby. But so they misinterpreted him. No, when he said, is there no bakery, he meant, is there not a Jewish bakery? Isn't there a Grunbaum's nearby? So it is not true that he disagreed with the prohibition. Rav Chelba. Rav Chelba said, even if you think that Rabbi was saying there's no Wonder Bread factory, isn't there a Wonder Bread factory here, meaning that you could eat the non-Jewish bread? Lo amar nelo deleka palter Yisrael. That's only if there's no Jewish bakery. But if there was a Jewish bakery, then then you can't. In other words, it's shasad chak, or if you have no other source of bread, so you can eat the non-Jewish bread. But if you do have a kosher bakery or a Jewish bakery, then you have to buy that. Rabbi Yochanan Amar. Rabbi Yochanan says, Amar palter avut kochavim hanimile basada. Even according to the Mandi Amar that he was asking about Wonder Bread, hanimile basada, that would only be out in the field, aval be'ir, but in the city, then there's no way you can eat the pasakum mishum chassus because of social reasons. Ivo have a manbi menakes v'achil pas abe mitzrei. Evu was eating the bread of a kochavim at the edge of the field outside the city. Amar l'Rav B'Tem Rav Nachman Yitzchak. Rav said to him, "Lo tishto b'hadei de'evud. You shouldn't hang out with Evud. The ka'achil lachmad aramai, because he's eating non-Jewish bread." In other words, he felt that he was doing it wrong. So like don't hang out with him. Okay, so I guess we'll stop here, and tomorrow David will start the sugya of the oil, which is an interesting one because something that the Mishnah clearly says is asher l'achila, but the Gemara takes back. Have a good day, everyone.
Dr. Carl.